If you're losing your early game over and over again, it's not your teammates. It's how you're playing the first 10 minutes. Most players go into lane with no plan. They take bad trades, fight at the wrong time, push when they shouldn't, and then they wonder why they're already behind before the game even really starts. And the worst part is, it doesn't even feel like you're doing anything wrong, or at least it didn't for me. It just felt like the game got harder out of nowhere. But in reality, you've already given up small advantages like health, positioning, wave control. That starts to stack against you. And once that happens, you're not playing to win anymore, you're just playing to survive. You're reacting to what your opponent is doing instead of controlling the lane yourself. And that's where the game starts slipping away. The early game is not random. It's not just about mechanics or who fights better. It's about understanding what you should be doing at each moment and why it matters. So instead of going into every match guessing, let's break down what a strong first 10 minutes actually looks like and how you can actually start taking control of your games from the very beginning. Most players load into a game and immediately start playing without ever thinking about what their lane is supposed to look like. And that's a huge mistake. Before the first wave even meets, you should already be asking yourself, do you win a fight early game or do they? Am I stronger at level 1 to 3 or later on? If your character is stronger early, your main goal should be to apply pressure, take those favorable trades, and establish control of the lane right away. That means stepping up first, contesting space, and forcing your opponent to play on your terms. But if you're weak early, your job isn't to just outplay them. It's to survive, minimize losses, and scale into your stronger point. That might mean giving up some early game pressure and waiting for better opportunities instead of forcing bad ones. Without this understanding, every decision you make in lane becomes a guess instead of something intentional. Now, once you have that plan in mind, everything you do in early game starts to connect. You're not just reacting to what's happening, you're guiding how the lane plays out. For example, if you know you're stronger early, you can play around things like the enemy's tier 1 being up, positioning yourself aggressively so they're forced to either fight you at a disadvantage or give up valuable souls early. And on the flip side, if you know you're weaker, you're more focused on keeping that wave in a safe spot, avoiding unnecessary trades, and taking guaranteed value when it's available. These decisions are not random, they all come from an understanding what your lane is supposed to accomplish. When you start approaching the early game this way, it becomes a lot more controlled. Instead of bouncing between random fights and passive moments, your gameplay now has direction. You know why you're pushing, why you're backing off, and what you're trying to get out of each moment. That clarity removes a lot of chaos players usually feel early on. You're not overwhelmed or second guessing every decision. You're following a plan you already set before the lane even started and adjusting as the game unfolds. The first wave is where lane control is decided, but most players treat it like it doesn't matter. In reality, those first few seconds set the tone for everything that follows. Whoever handles the first wave better usually gets control over how the lane is played. And that doesn't mean you need to force the fight immediately. It means you need to be intentional with your positioning and how you interact with the wave. Are you stepping up first or giving up space for free? Are you trading when the wave is in your favor or are you taking damage for no reason? Small decisions here have a ripple effect. Taking a bad trade or misplaying your position early doesn't just cost you a little health. It forces you to back up, give up pressure, and play reactive for the next couple minutes. The first wave is really about establishing control without overcommitting. Even something as simple as getting a clean trade and forcing your opponent to respect you can completely change how the lane plays out. Once they're lower in health or pushed back, you have much more freedom. You can decide how fast the wave moves, when to step up, and how much pressure you apply. And on the flip side, if you lose control early, you're the one getting pushed in, forced to play safer, and limited in what you can do. That's why this moment matters so much. It's not about winning a fight instantly, it's about setting yourself up to have better options moving forward. And to be real, kills in the first few minutes do matter, but not in the way most players think. A kill is strong because of what it gives you after: time, space, and control. If you secure a kill off the first wave or shortly after, you're not just getting gold, you're getting a free reset, a better position in lane, and the ability to come back stronger while your opponent is still recovering. But if you're forcing a risky fight just for the kill and ignoring everything else, it can easily backfire. The goal isn't to chase kills, it's to build an advantage, and if the kill comes from that, it just accelerates everything in your favor. Most players think trading just means fighting, but that's where they go wrong. Good trading isn't even about forcing kills, it's about consistently coming out ahead in small interactions. That means understanding when you have an advantage, cooldowns up, better positioning, or even just being closer to your side of the lane, and using that moment to deal damage without taking equal or worse damage back. A lot of players either overcommit to fights they shouldn't take, or avoid trading entirely and slowly lose control. Both sides of that coin are mistakes. Every trade should have a purpose. Chip them down, force them to back up, or create space for you to step forward and control the lane. It also comes down to how you enter and exit trades. You don't want to stand there and exchange damage evenly. You want a quick, controlled interactions. Step in when you have the advantage, get your damage off, and step out before they can respond properly. If you stay too long, you give them a chance to turn it back on you. Positioning plays a huge role here too. Trading near your side of the lane is safer, gives you more room to disengage, while trading too far up can make even a good trade turn bad bad if you get punished after. Paying attention to these small details is what keeps your trades clean and consistent. Think of trading like stacking small wins instead of looking for one big play. If you take a clean trade and walk away with more health, you've already gained control, even if nothing flashy happens. Do that a few times and now your opponent is playing scared, backing up, or forced into a bad decision. That's when kills or bigger advantage naturally open up. Because they're already weakened and limited in what they can do, lane control isn't built in one moment. It's built through these small, intentional interactions adding up over time until the lane starts to feel completely in your favor. Wave control is one of the most important parts of the early game, and most players either ignore it or don't fully understand what it's doing for them. The wave isn't just something you clear, it dictates where you're allowed to stand and how safe you are. If the wave is pushed too far up without any reason, you're exposed and easier to punish. But if it's closer to your side, you have way more room to play safely and control the pace. Every time you touch the wave, there should be intention behind it. Whether you're trying to stabilize the lane, create pressure, or prepare for what happens next, even something as simple as hitting the wave too fast or too slow can completely change how the next 30 to 60 seconds play out. And what makes this so powerful is how it connects to everything else in the early game. If you push at the right time, you can create enough space to rotate, take camps, or force your opponent to stay and deal with the wave while you move first. If you hold the wave in a safer position, you make it harder for them to fight you or punish mistakes. Even something as simple as delaying how fast you clear can buy you time or deny them opportunities. The wave is constantly giving you options, you just have to recognize them. If you ignore it, you end up reacting to the game. If you control it, you start shaping how the game plays out. A good example of this is when you're clearly stronger than your opponent, instead of clearing instantly and pushing it away from you, you can let them clear first so the wave naturally pushes it towards your side. That sets the next wave up closer to your guardian, giving you way more space to work with. Now, if they walk up for resources, they're doing it in the longer lane where they are easier to pressure, chase, or punish. You're not forcing anything, you're setting up a situation where they have to make a bad choice. Either they give up value or they walk into a position where you have the advantage. These kind of small adjustments are what slow the game down for you. You're no longer clearing waves and hoping something happens. You're creating the situations where you're in control. The lane becomes predictable and your decisions become clear. And you start to feel like you always have the upper hand now. That's the real value of wave control. It gives you structure in a part of the game that usually feels chaotic. Now, map awareness in the early game is one of those things players think they have until you actually look at their gameplay. It's insane when you look back at your games and see that players barely call out rotations, missing enemies, and you and your teammates are the only people that suffer from it, unfortunately. It happens even in higher elo, because to be honest, even when I queue, I still get people who have no callouts the entire game. And it's funny because most early deaths don't happen because someone got outplayed mechanically. They happen because something was missed. An enemy disappears from lane, someone rotates, or a fight breaks out nearby, and instead of adjusting, players just keep doing the same thing like nothing changed. That's how you end up getting caught off guard. Paying attention to the map isn't just about seeing where people are, it's about constantly asking who can affect me right now and adjusting your position based on that. Simple habit like checking the map every few seconds can completely change how safe and effective you are in lane. If you notice someone missing, you can back up before anything happens instead of reacting too late. If you see pressure on the other side of the map, you can play more aggressively knowing you're less likely to get punished. It's less about reacting quickly and more about staying one step ahead. When you start using the information the game is already giving you, your decisions become a lot cleaner, and a lot of those random deaths just stop happening altogether. Securing resources efficiently in the early game is one of the biggest differences between players who feel stuck and players who consistently build leads. A lot of players get distracted by fights or chase kills that aren't guaranteed, and in the process, they miss out on things that are always valuable. Lane resources, nearby camps, or uncontested pickups. The early game isn't about forcing something flashy to happen, it's about collecting as much consistent value as possible while denying it from your opponent. Every second you spend chasing something uncertain is usually a second you could have spent gaining something guaranteed. And over time, those missed seconds start to add up in a big way. A big part of this understanding is opportunity cost. When you leave lane for a risky play, you're not just risking the fight, you're also giving up whatever is happening in that lane at the same time. That could be an entire wave, a timing window, or even control over your position. Even if you do get that kill, the trade-off isn't always worth it if you lose consistent value in the process. On the other hand, when you stay disciplined, clearing waves on time, taking nearby camps, and picking up free resources, you're constantly progressing without ever putting yourself in a position to fall behind. This also ties into how you evaluate fights. Not every fight is bad, but the ones you take should be clearly in your favor or directly tied to something meaningful, like an objective. If you're chasing someone across the map with no guaranteed outcome, you're gambling time as well as resources. And most of the time, that gamble pays out the same, or even less if you had stayed efficient. Clearing a camp, catching a wave, maintaining your position might not feel exciting, but it's reliable, repeatable value, and that's what builds real leads. Over time, this approach creates a gap that almost feels invisible at first. You're not getting massively ahead from one moment. You're slowly pulling away because you're consistently making higher value decisions. While others flipping fights and hoping that works out, you're stacking guaranteed progress. And by the time mid-game hits, that difference becomes very noticeable. Not because of one big play, but because you respected your time and made it count every step of the way. Timing windows are what turn random movement into effective movement in the early game. A lot of players either stay in lane too long or leave at the wrong moments, which ends up costing them more than it helps. Moving around the map isn't about doing more, it's about doing things at the right time. If you leave while your wave is in a bad spot, you're giving up free resources and pressure. But if you move after pushing your wave, you create a window where your opponent is forced to stay and deal with it, giving you the freedom to act first. That difference, moving with a reason versus moving randomly, is what separates efficient play from wasted movement. A good way to think about it is this: every action you take should come from a window you create or recognize. For example, if you clear your wave quickly and it's pushing into their side, that's your signal. You now have a few seconds where they're occupied and you're not. That's when you can rotate, take a nearby camp, or help someone out without falling behind. And on the other hand, if the wave is coming into you and you leave anyway, you're handing them free value. These windows are short, but they happen constantly, and learning to spot them is what makes your gameplay feel efficient instead of rushed. Another layer to this understanding that timing isn't just about your lane, it's also about what's happening around the map. If you see pressure building somewhere nearby, you can prepare your wave in advance so you're ready to move when that moment happens. Instead of reacting late, you're already in position to impact. The same applies to resets. Backing at the right time when your wave is in a good spot allows you to return without losing anything. Poor timing on something as simple as a reset can cost you more than a bad fight because you lose both resources and control at the same time. Once you start playing around these moments, your decisions become a lot cleaner. You're not just moving because something might happen, you're moving because the timing actually supports it. That means fewer wasted rotations, fewer missed resources, and more situations where you're the one acting first instead of trying to catch up. And over time, this is what makes your early game feel controlled instead of chaotic, because every movement has a reason behind it and it leads to the next play. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is playing from behind in the early game. That's where a lot of players make things worse without realizing it. As soon as they fall behind, they start forcing fights, overextending, or trying to make something happen to catch back up, but that usually just digs them into a deeper hole. Being behind doesn't mean the lane is over. It just means your approach has to change. Instead of trying to win everything back immediately, your goal shifts to stabilize your lane and preventing the gap from getting bigger. You're not playing to dominate anymore, you're just trying to recover without giving your opponents more ways to snowball. That means focusing on what's still available to you, playing safer positions, taking the resources without risking more, and avoiding fights that clearly aren't in your favor. You don't need to match their pressure. You just need to minimize your losses, let the wave come to you, take what you can, and wait for moments where the game naturally gives you an opportunity. Whether that's a mistake from the opponent or a favorable situation elsewhere on the map, even something as simple as catching every wave cleanly and not dying again should slowly close the gap for you rather than forcing a risky play. It also helps to shift how you view the lane when you're behind. You're no longer trying to control everything. You're trying to remove their ability to punish you further. That might mean giving up space temporarily so you don't lose everything at once. If they push too far or get impatient, that's where your opportunity comes from. A lot of leads fall apart because the player ahead starts forcing too much. And if you've stayed disciplined up to this point, you're in a position to benefit from the mistake instead of being the one making it. Trying to rush your way back into the game almost always backfires. The recovery comes from stacking small, safe decisions over time. You're building your way back into relevance instead of flipping the game on one moment. And when the game finally gives you that window, whether it's a bad fight from the enemy, a rotation you can match, or a chance to take uncontested resources, you're ready to take advantage of it because you didn't make things worse leading up to it. Playing from behind isn't about doing more. It's about doing less, but doing it correctly until you can get back into the game. It requires a lot of patience, awareness, and discipline, but when you approach it the right way, you'll start noticing that games feel a lot more recoverable than they used to. And hey, at the end of the day, the early game isn't complicated, but most players make it feel that way because they're not playing it with a plan. If you start thinking about your win condition, your trades, your wave, your timing, everything slows down. You're no longer guessing, you're making decisions that actually build an advantage. And once you get that down, you'll notice something. Your game starts feeling way more consistent and you're not falling behind nearly as often. If you want to take this even further, I've got a Discord linked in the description where I break down more concepts like this and answer questions. And if you want direct help, I'm also doing VOD reviews on Metafy. So if you want me to go through your gameplay and show you exactly what to fix, that's there too. Other than that, appreciate you guys watching and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe. Later.